Hello everyone, welcome to another video. I'm Randy. May have noticed I haven't made a video in a couple weeks, but I have been doing some other projects. Rich Strickler and I have been ranking the #1 hits from 1965 to 1975. This week on Friday we're going to be ranking 1971, but I'll give you a link to the last one we did, which was 1970, down below. And also I recently did a video with Rich and Sam St. John where we ranked the songs on Van Morrison's classic album Moondance, and I'll leave a link below on that one too. And this is a thread, or I guess a vinyl tag, started by Beth, and her channel is Miss 80s Movies and Music. I think her channel, she's renamed her channel. I think it used to be B-Side Records or something like that. I'm not sure. But she's a big lover of the 80s and movies and soundtracks, and I guess she's got a ton of soundtracks in her collection. And so I'm going to do the vinyl tag for this thread. I will also put a link below to her original vinyl tag, and she's got all the questions, and you can go over to hers and see what the questions are if you want to participate in this. And so I'll just go, she's got 20 questions or prompts on here, and I'll just get started here. First one is, how many soundtracks do you own? And I say 60 or 70. I'm just guessing. I don't have everything in Discogs yet, including CDs, maybe a few more. But so anyway, that's the first one. Second one is the first soundtrack you ever bought. First one I ever bought was Woodstock, the film made about the famous concert at Max Yasgur's farm with all the famous artists like Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, Joe Cocker, Arlo Guthrie, Country Joe McDonald, Jimi Hendrix playing the Star Spangled Banner. Of course, everybody knows about Woodstock. Anyway, that was my first soundtrack purchase. All right, second one. The most recent soundtrack purchase you added to your collection, new or used. The newest one is, I found this Our Man Flint, which was a spoof on the James Bond movies. This was the first one, and I think In Like Flint was the next one. I think they made two of them. But it starred James Coburn. I don't think anybody's as cool as James Coburn. But I saw that the score was done by Jerry Goldsmith, and I'm a big fan of his. So I just picked this up. I haven't even listened to it yet. The next question was, what's your most listened to soundtrack? And that would be The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly by Ennio Morricone. Of course, everybody knows the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly song. And then there's the, where is that? Ecstasy of Gold, which they've been using a lot in a lot of TV commercials. I just saw it in a beer commercial the other day. Yeah, this is the United Artists. And this is probably my most played, and you can see it's kind of coming apart. I need to put that in a new sleeve. But probably my favorite soundtrack composer, Morricone. And the next one is the best opening song on a soundtrack. And I think it's from Live and Let Die, the title track on the soundtrack with Paul and Linda McCartney, and actually probably my favorite James Bond theme, but, yeah, from Live and Let Die. Next one. Favorite soundtrack score composer and your favorite composition by them. Well, I like Morricone, and I said, so I don't want to pick the same one, so I'm going to pick someone else. I'm going to say Jerry Goldsmith. It's probably my second favorite. And this is a great one, Under Fire, which I didn't really have a lot of instrumental albums, but I just loved the music from this movie, and I wouldn't have purchased it after seeing the movie. Nick Nolte, Gene Hackman, Joanna Cassidy are in the movie, but wonderful soundtrack by Jerry Goldsmith. Next one is a movie with a lackluster soundtrack, and that's A Man Could Get Killed, which was kind of another spy spoof Uh, James Garner was in it, but this is music by Bert Kaempfert. Uh, and it introduced the song Strangers in the Night. Instrumental version sounds more easy listening than anything. It does have some up-tempo stuff in here, but it's not my favorite soundtrack. But it's an interesting movie. So anyway, that's my pick for lackluster soundtrack. And then, by the way, Strangers in the Night, I'm not so crazy about Frank Sinatra's version either, and I love Frank Sinatra. I don't think I'm crazy about the song in general. All right, the next one. A soundtrack that was way better than the movie. And I actually haven't seen the movie for this soundtrack, Times Square, but it got a bomb rating by Leonard Maltin, so it must be pretty bad. But it's got a great bunch of artists on here. It's got Roxy Music, Susie Quattro, The Pretenders, Lou Reed, Patti Smith Group, The Cure, The Ramones, XTC, Joe Jackson, Talking Heads. Got some great artists on here, but I've heard that the movie is terrible. All right, number 9, favorite artwork, jacket, or colored vinyl soundtrack. I'm going with favorite artwork or jacket. And it's this Against All Odds cover. I had a crush back in the day on Rachel Ward, so I just kind of always loved this cover on here. But Against All Odds, what's his name? Phil Collins. God, I can't think of it. Phil Collins did the title track on here. And it was a fairly big hit, I think. The next one is a soundtrack that needs reissued or first-time pressing on vinyl. And I picked Even Cowgirls Get the Blues. This has never been pressed on vinyl that I know of. It's K.D. Lang with Ben Mink doing the soundtrack music on here, and K.D. Lang does some amazing songs on here, but I always love her voice. So that's one I would say needs to be put on vinyl. Okay, the next one, a bargain bin soundtrack. And I picked Dr. Zhivago, music by, what is his name? Maurice Jarre? Probably pronounced that wrong. But if you go buy a box of records at an auction or somebody's house, or somebody gives you a box of records, you can probably find this one, and you can probably find it cheap at any record store, I imagine. But Dr. Zhivago. All right. A soundtrack that includes your favorite band or artist. Of course, most people know, or a lot of people know, that my favorite artist is Van Morrison. And on this King of Comedy album, with the music by the movie directed by Martin Scorsese, and Scorsese always has great music on his albums. And it's the wonderful song, Wonderful Remark by Van Morrison on here. It's the last one on side 2. It's got Rainbow Sleeve by Ricky Lee Jones, Back in the Chain Gang, The Pretenders, B.B. King, Tain't Nobody's Business If I Do, and the Ray Charles Come Rain or Come Shine song, Between Trains, Robbie Robinson. It's got some, this is a fantastic soundtrack here, King of Comedy. All right. A soundtrack where an actor from the movie also performs a track on the album. Yeah, of course, it's a musical, so that helps. But I'm picking Gigi, and Maurice Chevalier is in the movie. There he is right there. He does Thank Heaven for Little Girls, I'm Glad I'm Not Young Anymore, that appear on this soundtrack album. But it's a wonderful movie with Leslie Caron and Louis Jourdan. Let's see what's next here. The soundtrack where a band or artist actually perform in the movie. And I'm picking the movie The Life Aquatic, Wes Anderson movie. If you typical Wes Anderson, kind of eclectic, but if you like Wes Anderson, you probably like this movie. And I'm using although he's not in any of these pictures. And it's the actor Jorge, can't think of how, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he plays guitar in the movie, and he sings David Bowie songs in Portuguese. But so that's an actor that actually sings in the movie, and it's on the soundtrack too. All right, the last movie you watched that you also have the soundtrack for. Well, my favorite James Bond movie is From Russia with Love, and I just rewatched it the other day. Great Sean Connery movie with Daniela Bianchi. I can't remember pronouncing. I'm doing terrible pronouncing these people's names on here, but yeah, this is a John Barry soundtrack. The only bad part is Matt Monro sings the theme song, and it's one of my least favorite, probably, James Bond themes. But great movie, though. From Russia with Love. Next is number 16, A Record Store Day soundtrack score. And I'm picking another one that I'm not going to be able to pronounce probably here. Pour la Vie. Ennio Morricone soundtrack, which I'm really a fan of his. But this came out on Record Store Day. Just wonderful soundtrack music, wonderful instrumental stuff. But if you like Morricone, you'll like this one. Okay, next is a soundtrack from the year you were born. So I guess it's going to give away when I was born, but it's this soundtrack for the Louis Malle film, Elevator to the Gallows, which was a French film that, there, for all you French speakers. I'm not gonna try. But this was a reissue by Sam Records, but you can see that the film and the soundtrack actually originally came out in 1958, which was the year I was born. And it's kind of a 10-inch one because it wasn't and it's all the soundtrack that was improvised by Miles Davis, and even comes with a nice photo of Miles. But yeah, that's my soundtrack from the year I was born, even though that was a reissue, but originally came out in 1958. Okay, what's the next one on here? A soundtrack score blind buy. And this was Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow with a soundtrack by, God, this is really killing me, Armando Tovaglioli. And, I think it's an Italian composer. This was produced by Carlo Ponte, who was married to Sophia Loren. Also got Marcella Mastroianni in here, but I have not seen the movie, and I haven't actually listened to the soundtrack. I love Sophia Loren. I liked the cover, so I grabbed this, and I haven't listened to it yet either. Because I got this recently as well. But Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. Don't know how good the movie is. All right, we're getting close to the end here. So next one is a soundtrack, number 19, a soundtrack you own in multiple formats. I didn't have many, but I do have one that I have in 2 different formats, and that's from one of my favorite movies, and that's Casablanca with Ingrid Bergman and Humphrey Bogart. Music by Max Steiner, has the great song sung by Dooley Wilson, As Time Goes By, and here's my CD of it. And I also have it on vinyl, Casablanca. It's got some neat ones in that you have some of the, on this one you have some of the dialogue from the movie, which has some of the best dialogue of any movie, Casablanca. All right, and last but not least, the soundtrack that always lifts your mood. And I'm picking Animal House. Got some great songs on here by Sam Cooke, What a Wonderful World. Got Louie Louie, Tossin' and Turnin' by Bobby Lewis. Got the Animal House theme that was written by Stephen Bishop. And, of course, there's the famous one in the movie, Shout, which was in the movie that a group's called Otis Day and the Knights, but there was a guy named Lloyd Williams that was doing the singing on it. And Robert Cray actually plays bass in the band in the movie. And there's a guy named Dwayne Jesse that played Otis Day in the movie, but he didn't really sing. But then after the movie, he took the name Otis Day and the Knights and went on tour, even though he was not the one singing on the soundtrack or in the movie, which was Lloyd Williams. But that's just some interesting information. But I always loved this soundtrack. And this is actually a movie that I've probably seen at the theater more than any other movie. Back as a teenager, I thought it was very, very funny, and you wanted all your friends to go see the movie too. So I saw this movie a bunch of times. It always lifts my mood. Anyway, that's my soundtrack tag. I hope anybody else that wants to do it will do it. And thanks, Beth. And I guess Mr. Hall of Fame helped provide the questions, and hope everyone's doing well. Thanks.